All right, so this is a big story that no one's talking about, and that's the date of the partisan primary elections here in South Carolina. Now, in most years, the process begins in March when candidates file for elected office as either Republicans or Democrats. And then in June, usually the first or second Tuesday in June, the parties will hold the first round of voting for the nomination of the Republican or the Democratic Party. Now, in South Carolina, this matters a great deal because with Republicans dominating all of the statewide offices, most of the congressional districts, and the vast majority of seats in both the South Carolina House and Senate, the Republican primary is where it's at. The winner of that election typically goes on to win in November because, again, South Carolina is such an ostensibly Republican state. Now, this year's a bit different because this year is the decennial process of redistricting. And when I say decennial, for those of you who are educated in a government-run school in South Carolina, that means every 10 years. Every 10 years, the United States Census recounts how many people there are. And not only how many people there are, but where they are. And based on that information, Republicans and Democrats in Columbia get together and they redraw the state's political boundaries. This is your district where you vote for your House member, for your state senator, for your congressional representative, okay? So these lines get redrawn every 10 years, and it's always very political because lawmakers are supposed to redraw these districts based on legitimate population growth, migration, and they're supposed to draw these lines in a way that communities stay together so that there's cohesion and that lawmakers are electing constituencies, common constituencies. That's not really how it works, though. How it works is that lawmakers draw these lines based on backroom deals to protect incumbents and to protect partisan advantages. And again, the Democrats are a big part of this. I've seen a lot of stories in the mainstream media over the last few weeks talking about Republicans gerrymandering or redrawing districts in a corrupt way. But the fact is that they're doing it in cooperation with Democratic leaders. And in fact, the leader of that effort in years past has been U.S. Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, one of the most powerful men in Washington, D.C. Now, Congressman Clyburn represents a majority-minority district, and that means a district where the majority of the population is African-American, black. In this district, Clyburn has represented since 1993, and over the years, through multiple redistricting processes, he has made sure it stayed that way. Because again, he doesn't want to lose power, doesn't want to lose his seat. So again, when you read in the mainstream press that this is all racist and that this is all Republicans, that's only half true, okay? Democrats are part of this process too. But why does this matter? Why does this matter as it relates to the upcoming election calendar? I'll tell you. Because of the delay in the U.S. Census data this year due to COVID and other factors, the federal government was late in getting numbers to lawmakers to redraw these lines. So lawmakers in turn were then late in producing their maps, which means that the people who get pissed off about the maps and sue the lawmakers were late in filing their lawsuits. Bottom line, everybody's late. So, and in some cases that's probably a good thing, but in this case it's not because we've got elections to run. And in June, we're supposed to go to the polls and decide which Republicans and which Democrats we want to appear on the ballot in November. From what I'm told, that's not going to happen this year. From what I'm told, we're looking at least a 1 and possibly a 2-month delay on these partisan primary elections, which would mean that voters would not go to the polls to pick their nominees until perhaps as late as August. Now, does this matter? Yes, it compresses the general election cycle, which means that voters will have less time to decide which one of the major party nominees they want to pick from, or hopefully, my God, hopefully this will be the year we get some third-party options because this two-party thing hadn't really been working out that well for either the country or the state. But the compression of this time frame is very important, and we're going to be keeping a very close eye on this moving forward because, again, as this lawsuit is adjudicated in the federal system, that's going to have a direct impact on when you cast your ballot this spring. It's going to have a direct impact on when these candidates start bombarding you with their mail pieces, their television ads, and it's also going to have a direct impact on the competitiveness of these races moving forward. Now, 2022 is expected to be a landslide year for Republicans. The GOP is projected to storm in South Carolina, much like it did in 2020, possibly expanding its majorities in the South Carolina House and in the statewide offices, which currently they hold all of them. So Republicans expected to do very well this fall, but again, how well they do could hinge on that primary date. And again, the competitiveness for that primary election is going to be critical in determining who the Republican nominees are, because once again, in South Carolina, it's the Republican primary election that eventually decides, in most cases, who your elected representative is.